Hey fans, did you know that Dash is the only digital auction platform built specifically for professional sports teams and their fan bases? It is also your place to score your favorite hockey team's most authentic memorabilia and game day experiences. Dash powers the auctions for your favorite AHL, ECHL, SPHL, NAHL, and USHL hockey clubs, plus many more across sports. Get in on the bidding now by texting DASH to 66866 or visit thesinbin.net and click on the word auctions in the upper right corner to find out the latest hockey auctions. Dash, making sports bidding so much easier in the digital age. This episode of the In the Corners podcast is sponsored by Sporfy, the sports video platform that allows you to instantly capture, replay, and share your favorite game highlights, all without having to film. For more information, visit sporfy.com or download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the App Store.
Bringing you the only weekly podcast dedicated to the ECHL. This is In the Corners podcast. Now your host, CC Hawkley.
Good evening from Boise, Idaho. This is the In the Corners podcast for Monday, March 25th, 2019. Welcome to episode number 72 of the good ship In the Corners. As the intro said, my name is CC. Welcome to tonight's show. You know, normally I have a bit of an introduction before I go into the show, but I really don't want to waste any time getting into the introduction of my guest. I had the pleasure of meeting him at the 2019 ECHL All-Star Classic in January, and needless to say, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. So, my guest tonight is a graduate from Bowling Green State University, earning his bachelor's in individualized studies with a specialization in sports communications in 2011. While at Bowling Green, he served as the hockey play-by-play announcer for the Falcons for 3 seasons from 2009 to 2012, and also served as an athletics communications intern for 1 year from May 2010 to May 2011. He served as a play-by-play announcer and color commentator for the Lake Erie Monsters baseball team in 2008, the manager of communications for the USHL from 2012 to 2014, and Director of Media Relations and Broadcasting for the Youngstown Phantoms of the USHL for the 2014-15 season, before joining the ECHL Cincinnati Cyclones in 2015. He is now currently, and has been since then, the Director of Public Relations and Broadcasting, right up to the present. So welcome to the show, Everett Fitzhugh. Everett, this is my 25th episode hosting the In the Corners podcast, so you are on here for quite a hallmark show.
This is a huge milestone. I'm actually very I'm flattered. I'm honored to be a part of such a tremendous milestone number. I feel like I have to outdo some of my previous counterparts around the league for this monumental show.
Everett, first things first. Before I even joined the Sin Bin, I want to say you're a very classy guy, because I was on LinkedIn. I wanted to make hockey connections, and for some reason, this was probably a good 6 months before I joined the Sin Bin, but for some reason, obviously I made all the local connections here in Boise with the Idaho Steelheads organization, but there were 2 other organizations that I got connected with, and the only other play-by-play person that I reached out to and got connected with, besides Brian McCormick from last year's broadcast booth for Idaho, was you. And you were absolutely just like, yeah, I mean, you could reach out, and here's my office number, and here's this and that, and you were just really just open and willing to work with me, even though I hadn't really cut my teeth in the business yet. So first things first, thank you for that.
Well, no, I mean, hey, listen, that's not a problem at all, and I've always been the kind of person who I like to help people out, because I hate to sound like I'm this well-traveled veteran, you know what I mean? I've only been out of school for 8 years, right? So, but I always love helping people and talking to people, because I was in that position. I remember I've reached out to countless broadcasters and PR guys over the years, and you're met with no answers. You're met with thanks, but no thanks. And all I really want to do is to connect, is to pick your brain, is to job shadow you for a day. And I've always told people that no matter who that person is, I mean, if somebody asks me anything, a question, you want to connect, you want to get to know me, anything like that, I'm all for it, because I remember where I was in that situation, and it's hard. I mean, one of the things that folks told me about getting into hockey is that it's once you're in, you're in. Now, it's really hard to get in, to make that first connection, but
right.
No, it's something I've always prided myself on, is being able to be there for people and to talk to people and to, be a resource for folks, because I used people to help me out, and I'm all for people using me and getting to know me and asking me questions. So whatever I can do for aspiring broadcasters, people who, want advice, want to ask questions, that is one of my main things about, I think we do enough of, is helping each other.
Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely something that I've encountered now that I am in the business and working with the Sin Bin for a good, it's over a full calendar year now, November, October of 2017 was when I came on. So a good year and a half on the calendar. So yeah, I mean, that's something I've encountered with you, something I've encountered with a lot of play-by-play guys and a lot of people that are involved in the organizations as well. Granted, the only organizational folks that I've met, aside from Idaho and then in Toledo for the All-Star Classic, was just other play-by-play people that have been coming through. Mark Benetti for Rapid City comes to mind as one that I've talked with on numerous occasions when the Rush come to town to face the Steelheads. But yeah. Speaking of good nature go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. That's one thing about our league and about the broadcasters in our league, is that, this young crop that we have. I mean, all of us are 32 years old and younger, right? For the most part. And, we've all been interns, and we've all been listening to broadcasts since we were kids. And now that, you can say that over half of your league broadcasters are 3-4 years removed from college, from internships, from whatever. I think it just goes to show just how special this league is. And I think the amount of talent, I mean, you mentioned Mark Benetti, you mentioned Brian McCormick. I mean, I look at Alex Reed, who's down in Jacksonville now. I look at John Peterson, who's in Tulsa, Jason Mulls in Wichita, a lot of really, really good broadcasters, and just good people. I mean, I think that's the one thing that stands out is not only can, I think, half the broadcasters in this league step into an NHL play-by-play booth right now, but I just think that there's so many genuinely good, fine people in this league, and I think it makes it that much more fun, and it makes it that much better, the product that the guys around the league put out.
Yeah, absolutely. And a number of those guys, I think, say from Alex Reed, I've actually had on the show. And so aside from Brian McCormick, I didn't get the chance to get him on the show because, well, he went to the AHL before I took over as the host. So, but let me ask you this. Speaking of good relations between play-by-play broadcasters, you and Shane Albarani from the Fort Wayne Comets, the play-by-play announcer there in Fort Wayne. You guys have a little friendly thing going on, I've noticed on Twitter, where you pass a seat cushion back and forth in between each other. So tell us a bit more about what that's all about.
Yeah, that is actually a very, very unique story. Fort Wayne came to our building, it's probably about a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. Actually, maybe a little more than that. Probably about 2 months ago, early in February, January-ish, around there sometime. And where the press box is at our arena, it's in the stands. So those of you who have been to like South Carolina or Greenville, kind of similar to that, where the press box is actually in a seated area. So I guess where he sat, the cushion had detached from the seat. So I had a little running joke. I made us some more room because I know you get really animated up there. So I just wanted to make sure you had enough room to stretch out. And spread your legs and what have you, stretch your legs and all that. And so I forgot who had the idea, but because I love Shane so much, I'm going to give him the honor of having come up with the award. He said, what if we just pass this trophy back and forth between one another? And I said, actually, that might not work. So if we win today, I'll take this home. And if you guys win, you'll take this home. So the Comets Cyclones Broadcasters Challenge Championship Memorial Traveling Seat Cushion Trophy of America was established on that faithful day about 2-ish months ago. So I am the 2-time defending champion of the cushion, and we play each other on our season finale coming up here in about 2 weeks. So I'm hoping that cushion will have a permanent home on my shelf in my office all summer. But should we meet in playoffs, which if our past history is any indication, sounds like we're going to have another meeting in playoffs this season. So we haven't determined how that's going to work out this year.
Yeah, if you guys are going to have to pass it, every game that, you trade off or anything like that, or whoever wins the series, I would imagine would probably hold on to the cushion in the off season. And
absolutely. But I will say, though, I think next year when we do this, we're going to have to do something a bit smaller because that thing is very cumbersome. And it was a great idea in the moment. But when you're lugging that thing on buses and upstairs, and it's just awkward and just difficult to carry. So Justin Cohn, who was the beat writer for the Fort Wayne Comets, actually came up with an idea that said whoever loses the game should have to keep that trophy and lug it around. So I think next year we're going to find something a bit easier to lug around with us.
Well, you had a picture that you tweeted out today with a title belt on top of that thing. I mean, could you change it out for the title belt, perhaps? Okay.
For next year, we'll use that title belt as the trophy itself. I think that's a bit easier to carry around. I could put it in a bag or something like that. So I think we'll use that belt next year to carry it around. Let's
do a bit of a transition here. And let's just go into our home cooking segment. The podcast is divvied up into 3 parts, just like 3 periods in a regulation hockey game: home cooking, puck world, closing time. We'll talk about our home markets and home cooking. We'll talk about the ECHL and the hockey world at large and puck world. And to finish out regulation, we'll talk closing time and get to know Everett a little more on a personal level. Mr. Fitzhugh, are you ready?
I am ready, yes.
Oh, there we go. All right. Well, let me cue the music, and we'll go get down for some home cooking.
Discussing the teams we cover, it's time for a little home cooking on the In the Corners podcast.
I'm still here, Everett. I was just cueing the intro music. Sorry, man.
No, you're fine. I'm here, man. I'm ready.
Awesome. For those listening at home, my guests cannot hear the intro music. It's just the way that our audio setup is, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But yes, it's time for home cooking and talking about the markets we know well, and that is the markets that we cover. And it's time to satisfy your brains and bellies with our beginning frame called home cooking. All right. Home cooking. We'll talk about our home markets that we cover. And Everett, the Cincinnati Cyclones, it is fair to say, is probably, if not the best team in the ECHL right now. They were the first team to clinch both a playoff spot and their division, and now they're the first team to 100 points in the ECHL. They're just clicking on all cylinders, and it seems like they have been. Tell us a little bit about, aside from, very close 7-6 loss to Indy the other day, tell us just about what's been going on with the Cincinnati Cyclones and why they're doing so well this season under head coach Matt Thomas.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this season, I mean, it all starts, I think, with Matt Thomas. I mean, when you bring in a coach who has such a great track record that he has, I mean, he's got multiple championships. He's never missed the playoffs as a pro coach. Coming into the league, ECHL leader all time in playoff games coached. I believe 3rd in playoff wins as well. This is a guy who's resume and whose record I think precedes itself. So I think it all starts up there. Just the positive energy, the positivity, the wantingness to not only win, but I think more importantly, he wants our players and he wants the guys in that locker room to get better. Now, obviously, you're in this business to win, right? That's why we coach. That's why we play, to win. But I think that for him, being able to develop players and being able to get the most out of player X that he can is also very important for him. I mean, you look at a guy like Jesse Schultz, and I always use Jesse Schultz as an example. I mean, he's 36 years old. He has played on every continent, in every league. He's got 900 games, 800 points. He's closing in on 1,000 career games, and he's blocking shots. He is going up against, in the corners and digging pucks out. Like, he's doing things that you would expect a 26-year-old Jesse Schultz to do. But, a lot of times when you have older players, they may not want to do a lot of that gritty, dirty work that it takes to win. And Matt Thomas has gotten that out of him and from everybody. So I think it starts there. Obviously, you cannot overlook the help and the influence that our affiliation with Buffalo and Rochester have had. We've got 12 guys on contract this year from Roch and Buffalo, and these are all players who they don't see as expiring contracts. Oh, we're just going to throw them down in Cincinnati because we want nothing to do with them. These are actually players who they see will fit into their long-term plans. And Jason Bottrell, who Wheeling Naylor fans may know because he was in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh and Wilkes and Wheeling, they did a really nice job of building their system from the bottom to the top. And that's exactly what he brought, that same mindset he brought to Buffalo, to Rochester, working with Randy Sexton, who was the assistant GM in Buffalo, the GM of Rochester. They really feel that Cincinnati is a top place for development. And not only do they want Buffalo to do well, not only do they want Rochester to do well, they also want Cincinnati to do well. And there's been a few call-ups this year. We actually just had 2 guys called up today in Judd Peterson and Kurt Goslin. But for the most part, a guy like Pascal Akin, who I think easily could be in Rookie of the Year conversation, Miles Powell, Vas Glotov, all those guys who I feel factor long-term into at least American League plans, if not NHL plans, being able to develop, get all their seasoning down here in Cincinnati, and then next year, maybe be a full-time AHLer or a part-time AHLer, ECHLer, but with more time up north in Rochester. I think that is what they really focus on, and what they really want is that development piece. So I think with Matt Thomas, with the fact that you've got a really good affiliation, and then I think the third tier of that for the Cyclones is just the leadership capacity. Justin Vive, Eric Knodel, I mentioned Jesse Schultz already, Michael Hauser. These are all guys who have been in Cincinnati. They played here for multiple seasons. They know the city. They know the organization. They know the history. And anytime you can bring in rookie players, you can bring in new guys and say, hey, we've got a really good core of 5, 6, 7 guys who've won in this league, who've been in this league, who knows what it takes to succeed in this league. I mean, I don't see how, as a young guy coming in, as maybe a prized free agent coming in for the summer, I don't see how you could pass that up with all 3 of those tiers being what they are here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my next questions, was regarding the leadership. And now I know you've got, of course, your official captain and then your 3 alternate captains. Now, aside from, I mean, in an official capacity and an unofficial capacity, just expand on the leadership and who's really stepped out this season for the Cyclones in that regard.
So, I mean, obviously, in an official capacity, you've got Justin Vive, excuse me, who is the player assistant player assistant coach and our team captain. You've got Eric Knodel, last season's captain, who's assistant captain, and then you have Jesse Schultz. So, in an official capacity, yeah, you've got those three. Mm-hmm. But in an unofficial capacity, you've got 24 guys in that room who have all helped to, I guess, build and foster that really solid leadership core. I mean, there's a guy in our locker room I look at, his name is Nate Mitten, played college hockey up in Canada, didn't really come from a, big junior background and kind of bounced around in the SPHL last season, but he's found a home here in Cincinnati, and he's a guy that it sounds really cliche, but he's a first on, last off guy. And when I say last off, he's staying out on the ice for half an hour to an hour after practice every day, working on skills, working on getting better. Oh, he's a guy who leads by example. You look at another player, Alex Weidman on our team, Brady Vale. I put those two in the same category as guys who have been around the league. They've been around hockey for a while. Weidman coming from Miami, just up the road. Brady Vale had a really good junior career, but has been around a lot of different teams in the ECHL. They've really been able to lean and use a lot of their expertise, a lot of their experiences that they've had to help guys, a lot of our younger guys in the locker room. So, you've got the big guys up top, but then you've got those guys in the middle there, the Weidmans, and you've got the Brady Vales, people like that who have been there before. And while they may not be vets, technically because of games played, or actually I think Alex Weidman is getting to that number in terms of vet status. They may not be wearing letters technically. They're still very much a part of that leadership course possible. And then you've got the rookies. I mean, even though a guy like Pascal Akin, Miles Powell, Vosklotov, Spencer Dorowitz, those guys are rookies, those guys are younger guys, they still have come from positions of leadership on other teams. And I think that's something that, I find very similar with Matt Thomas and the Cyclones' former head coach, Matt McDonald. They, number one, want good character guys because the talent, the goals, the saves, all that stuff's going to come. If you can have good guys in the locker room, if you can have good guys who are not afraid to pull aside a guy, talk to them, who care about the team stats more so than their own stats, I think that's what's going to help you win in the long run. Now, obviously, I think that our team offensively, defensively, I mean, it's the top team in the league for a reason because you do have that skill. But I think more importantly, there's that leadership role from everybody on that roster who's capable at any one given time of taking that baton, so to speak, leading by example, helping guys out, working on skills, things like that. So that's why it's been so successful and so much fun to be around this year, is just to see how much everyone has bought in off the ice as well as on the ice.
Now, at the All-Star Classic, you mentioned, Vosklotov and Arvin Atwal, or excuse me, Atwal. Is it Atwal or Atwal?
Arvin Atwal.
Arvin Atwal. Okay, I was saying it right the first time. Yeah. I like to psych myself out with names. Yeah. It's just, you see it one way and you say it another. So, but, Glotov being a forward and Atwal being a defenseman, it was a 3-on-3 format at the All-Star game. And, when we were interviewing Coach Thomas post-game, we kind of joked around about, how Coach would pair those two up whenever the Western Conference was on the ice. And have they continued that chemistry in regards to just their line? I mean, obviously, like I said, defensive pairings and forward lines are a completely different bag, but have they carried over any of that chemistry that I kind of saw there from the All-Star Classic?
You know what they have, and I think with Arvin Atwal is paired with Eric Knodel. Those two have been paired together for the last. This is the third year now that they've been paired together. So, arguably, definitely, I think the top defensive pair on the team, and arguably one of the top defensive pairs in the ECHL overall. And with Glotov, you put him on our top line a lot of the times out there with Mike Marnell, out there sometimes with a Pascal Akin on that line, that offensive line. They do seem to be out there quite a bit. But that's another thing that about this Cyclones team that a lot of folks may not realize is that even though the lines haven't changed that much, even though the pairings really haven't changed that much, it's a very much plug-and-play mentality. Everybody in practice takes reps on the power play. Everybody in practice takes reps on the penalty kill. Everybody has an opportunity, at least in practice sometimes, to skate with everyone else. So in the situation that you have to mix up lines, guys obviously are going to prefer playing with certain players. But, if Vas Glotov had to be moved up to that top line to be in the middle of, let's say, Justin Vive and Jesse Schultz, for instance, that line has done really well for us this year. You can also put, Glotov in the middle of Akin and Marnell, let's say. That line is capable of scoring. I think the really one consistent line for us all year has been Miles Powell in the middle, Weidman on the left, and then Jesse Schultz on the right. That line has been, top scoring for us all year long. But again, outside of that line, the other 6 forwards on the ice, the other 7 forwards on the ice are capable of playing with anyone in any situation. But it is interesting to see guys have their chemistry. And with Arvin and Vas being, obviously one being a defenseman, one being a forward, you don't see that much when it comes to them linking up. Although I will say Arvin Atwal, probably one of the more offensive-minded defensemen that I've seen, which is a very good thing. I think we've got probably the most offensively gifted defense core in the ECHL. But seeing those two link up, while it may not happen as often as you would expect, when it does happen, those two do work well together.
Yeah, and just looking at these stats here, Everett, it's amazing just how many people are producing on the Cincy squad. And it makes sense because it's the top team in the league and everything. But just that top line of Schultz, Weidman, and Powell that you mentioned. Schultz has 76 points, and both Weidman and Powell have 60 points. And you look at when I use plus minus. I know it's kind of a controversial statistic amongst some people.
We
I know
talk all day about plus minus.
But you look at that pairing of Knodel and Knodel.
Yep, Knodel and Atwal.
See, there I go again, Knodel. You look at the pairing of Knodel and Atwal, and a plus minus of 40 and 45. It's just like, man, there's a reason why when we were putting together our end of the year awards, you can vote on through the sinbin.net. I forgot to mention that in the introductions. We have our end of the year, player awards, MVP, Defenseman of the Year, Coach of the Year. Lots of Cincinnati Cyclones names came up. Of course, Coach Matt Thomas for Coach of the Year, Eric Knodel with Defenseman of the Year, and Jesse Schultz for MVP as well. But, just with all of this production and everything, it bears mentioning, of course. You talk about leadership, you talk about scoring, you talk about the defensive effort. Let's talk about Michael Hauser, shall we? The netminder for the Cincinnati Cyclones, 26, 7, and 4, with a 2.15 goals against average and a .921 save percentage. And he is the league leading goaltender in the ECHL right now in a number of different categories. I think only Thomas Scholl has a better save percentage than Michael Hauser. Yeah. And obviously overcoming a big adversity by losing Jonas Johansson to injury earlier in the season, and making a big trade deadline move. I think the only move that Cincinnati made was trading Devin Buffalo and future considerations to the Wichita Thunder for goaltender Ty Rimmer. And just heading into the playoffs with the goaltender situation as it is, Hauser, he seems to still be shouldering the load pretty well.
Yeah, Michael Hauser, this is the second, so this is my 4th year in Cincinnati, and this is the second time he's been here. But Michael Hauser, this is his 4th stint overall here in Cincinnati. He's been a Cyclone. I think his first stint in Cincy, I was still in college. So
Oh,
I mean,
man.
he's been around Cincinnati for quite some time, and one of those goaltenders who, again, I will put Michael Hauser, and obviously I'm probably a little bit biased here, but I would put Michael Hauser against any goaltender in the ECHL over the past few years, just in terms of his consistency, just in terms of his production. Hauser is a guy who has won at this level, is capable of winning at this level. He's spent a lot of time in the AHL as well, and obviously fans in Cincinnati are happy that he's here. But from a personal standpoint, you kind of feel for him a little bit, because I think he does all this great work in Cincinnati and at the ECHL level, and he really never has gotten that number one shot, I think, in the AHL. He's had a few stints here or there. He's been able to put together some victories in the AHL, but I think overall, he is a definite AHL caliber goaltender. And it's one of those situations where Michael Hauser is going to play to the best of his ability wherever he's at. I mean, and again, just going back to his stats, I mean, he's got a few years ago, he played in 13-14. He played 29 games in Cincinnati, also 28 games in San Antonio. He's played with Ontario. He's played with Manchester. He's played with Cleveland. He's played with Tucson. But most of his time has come in the ECHL. And while in the ECHL, he's consistently gotten 15, 12, 17, 20, now 26, 28 wins a year. He's 2 wins off of his record last season with Fort Wayne, 28, 11, and 27 or 26 so far this year with Cincinnati. So he's probably going to shatter, I think, his single season wins total from last year in Fort Wayne. But yeah, I mean, every time he goes out there, the guys love playing for him. They rally around him, and that's taking nothing away from Johansson. That's taking nothing away from Ty Rimmer, other goaltenders that have been in here. Because even when Jonas Johansson was healthy and still playing, it did not matter who head coach Matt Thomas put out every night. The Cyclones believed in the man between the pipes. They still do. Believe in Michael Hauser. They believe in Jonas Johansson. They believe in Ty Rimmer. And I think it's a positional belief for this team that, you know what, regardless of what our offense does, regardless of what our defense does, we've got the best goaltending situation in the league, and we've got the utmost confidence in whoever's in net on any given night to go out there and get wins for us.
Looking at the Central Division race and the playoff standings, I've talked to, again, Shane Albarani and Isaac Berkey earlier in the season from the Central Division, and it's just there's a reason why I call it the meat grinder division. And Shane really liked that because, it's the only division in the ECHL that has 6 teams instead of 7. And, the playoff race is still, I don't want to say wide open, but, Indy or Wheeling could, catch fire and make a push on Kalamazoo or Fort Wayne. I mean, the 3 through 6 spots are only separated by 8 points. And so with that in mind, for a first-round matchup or for any matchup for that matter, I mean, who do you see Cincinnati pairing well with in the Kelly Cup playoffs for 2019?
Well, I mean, the first round is always a crapshoot, right? Because like you said, you've got Kalamazoo. I think they've got 72 points. Indy's at 68, and I want to say Wheeling's at 67, 66, around there somewhere. So like you said, they're all right there. I feel like the Cyclones match up really, really well with Kalamazoo. Just because you look at the record the Cyclones have had against KZoo this year. I mean, you're 9-1 overall against Kalamazoo this season. You've had some good success against them, but again, they're a very tough team to play. And I think that, with Cincinnati, 9-1-1-0 against Kalamazoo this year. So with Cincinnati having that success against one team, it bodes well. But Kalamazoo's played the Cyclones tough all year long. And I think a dark horse team that the Cyclones have faced in the past a lot in playoffs, and I think that the fans probably would not mind seeing Fort Wayne slip down to that number 4 spot and having the Cyclones take on them, because 2 of the last 3 seasons, the Cyclones have made the playoffs. 2 of the last 3 seasons, Fort Wayne has bounced them in the first round. So it would be nice, I think, to get some of that retribution back also this year, as has been the case every year with, I think, Cincinnati and Fort Wayne, is those two teams, whenever they play each other, it's a battle. I'll go back to our old head coach, Matt McDonald. He said that every time these two teams play each other, it takes everything out of you, emotionally, mentally, physically. You leave it out there on the ice. And I think it was evidence in that playoff series 3 years ago, my first year in Cincinnati, where the Cyclones lost, if I'm not mistaken, they lost game 2, 8-0.
Oof.
Game 3 went to double overtime. Cyclones won that one. Game 4 went to double overtime. Cyclones lost that one. Game 5 went to single overtime, and the Cyclones lost that one as well before coming back, winning game 6 and then losing in game 7. So anytime you can play 8, you play 6 periods of hockey over, in a day. I mean, that's remarkable. 12 periods total over a 2-day stretch. I mean, that's remarkable for what those two teams had to go through that year. But I think this season, the Cyclones match up really well, I think, with Kalamazoo for the first round. Indy has always been one of those teams that, every team has that one team that they can't seem to get by. And for us, for whatever reason, the last couple of years, it's been Indy, especially in that building. I mean, you look at yesterday, the Cyclones were down 7-2 with 10 minutes to go in the game, come back to get 4 of those 5 goals back, and you lose 7. Indy's a very good team at home. They play very well at home. And I think, as is the case with any team in the ECHL, and without sounding too cocky, I mean, people are going to get up and play their best for the best. And I think when you've got the Cyclones coming into your building, it's not going to be easy. And I think every team that the Cyclones play, they get their best from that team, be it the last place team in Allen when the Cyclones were down in Allen. 2 of those 3 games were close games. Allen actually beat the Cyclones in one of those games to snap an 11-game skid. Be it Allen, be it Toledo, be it whoever the case may be, they're going to give everything they have because they know just how talented this Cyclones team is, and they know what this team's accomplished. So regardless of who they go up against in playoffs, I think it's going to be fun. I don't see it being a clean sweep by any stretch of the imagination because it's playoffs. It's the second season, and we've seen first place teams fall in the first round. We've seen first place teams on cruise control and win. So you never know what's going to happen. But I'm really, really looking forward very much to coming up here in a couple of weeks, playoff starting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting shakeout to see who lands where in positions 3 and 4. Cincinnati pretty well has that first spot locked up, as does Toledo rather. Both of them have clinched playoff spots, and Cincinnati with 101 points and Toledo with 81. Those are pretty well, unless Fort Wayne makes a surge and Toledo just drops the rest of their games. They've played 65 out of 72. So, but my guess is Cincy will have the 1 seed locked up, Toledo with the 2nd, and spots 3 and 4 are just going to be kind of a knockdown, drag-out fight between those last 4 squads. So we'll see. Go ahead, Everett.
Yeah, I mean, and Cincinnati, I mean, they've already, with the division, I mean, the Cyclones have already clinched the division, and they've already clinched number 1 overall.
Oh, that's right.
In the West.
Yeah.
So, Cyclones are going to be, they've got the home ice advantage through at least the first 3 rounds. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, that's what makes this division so much fun. And I just pulled up the standings right now. The only other division that I think that is half as fun as ours is the North, because you've got a team like Reading at 68 points, Maine is at 73, Manchester at 74, Adirondack at 76. It's not out of the realm of possibility that David Fine and the Reading Royals could find themselves in second place. You don't know. You know what I mean? So
right.
A lot still to be decided, but you're absolutely right. I think when you can have such parity in our league. And I talked to Ryan Creelan and actually Joe Ernst on the broadcast over the past couple of weeks on separate occasions. And that's one thing they were praising is the parity, it seems like, year in and year out of this league. I mean, every single year you've got teams that finish last finishing first. You've got teams going from first to worst. You've got teams that have been middle of the pack teams find that second gear, like the Cyclones. I mean, the last few seasons, Cincinnati has been perennially a 3-4 seed, just waiting to take that next step, And this year, this team has taken that next step. So you're starting to see that, coming about. And, you look at Norton, Newfoundland, brand new expansion team. They're in first place. They've clinched a playoff spot. They probably will clinch a division. Maine, another team that's battling for a playoff spot right now in their first year back. So a lot of new blood, a lot of new faces. I think it only goes to help and strengthen the league. And in the Central, you're getting that with Fort Wayne, Kalamazoo, Indy, and Wheeling. I'm willing to bet Fort Wayne with their 74 points. I mean, they've been there before. They know what it takes to win. Gary Graham has always gotten his team to playoffs, but mathematically, Fort Wayne can finish in sixth and Wheeling can finish in third. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
You don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's what makes it so much fun is that, we're all players and staff, front office, everybody, we're alike. We're watching the standings every night, trying to see, okay, what did Indy do tonight? What did Kazoo do tonight? What did Wheeling do tonight? Because Cyclones have got the division wrapped up, the conference wrapped up, potentially could clinch the Brabham Cup this weekend, depending on what happens with Florida. So being able to kind of sit back and be fans of other teams and be fans and watch what these other teams are doing has been a lot of fun.
Well, that's nice. That's nice that you can actually, the view from the top sounds nice. So
Well, I really hope this doesn't come off as me being arrogant or cocky here.
No, not at all. Honestly, no, it is what it is. I mean, like I introduced the show, Cincy is the hottest team, if not the best team in the ECHL right now. And to contrast and to kind of shift gears, in the home cooking segment here, you look at the Mountain Division. I mean, Idaho is currently first place with 83 points, Tulsa second with 82, and Utah with 76. And, Utah's been on a monumental skid. I think they've lost 12 of their last 14 games. I think I tweeted out a few nights ago, and they were in first place at the start of that before they had their losing streak. They were in first place in the Mountain Division. But then you look at, Idaho and Tulsa, they kept, Idaho has had, their share of how do you put it? Just difficult games. I mean, you look at the Wichita series where, Wichita won, 2 of 3 on home ice against Idaho back from March 6th to the 9th. And granted, Idaho got 3 of 6 points out of it with an overtime loss on that last game. But then Idaho travels to Orlando. They go down 6-0 through 30 minutes of gameplay and then score 2 goals for a final of 6-2. Orlando gets the victory, but then they recover. They come back and win the second game of the 3-game set 4-1. And then they win the third game in a big statement, big way on March 19th, 7-2, and then go from Orlando from the 19th to the 22nd. They go from Orlando to Rapid City. They win 3-1 on the 22nd and shut out Rapid City 4-0. Thomas Scholl has had 3 shutouts this season, and they all have occurred in Rapid City, South Dakota. Interesting little fact. Interesting little tidbit for your Bowling Green alum there. Say again?
I was going to, let's hope Mark Benetti didn't just hear that stat.
Sorry, Mark. Oh, man. But, yeah, Idaho, they had that big blowout loss against Orlando, and it was like, oh, yeah, that's a rough one. But then they came back. They recovered. They took 2 of 3 in Orlando, and then to go to Rapid City. They're hosting Rapid City this coming week on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And, 3 of the last 4 home games for Idaho. And just taking a peek at their schedule, let's see. They go to Utah to play 2 games, and then I believe they finish up the season. Well, let me take that back. They host Utah on April 5th. Then they go down to West Valley City in Utah for the 6th and the 7th to finish out the year against the Grizzlies. And, depending on how the Mountain Division shakes out, that could be a first-round matchup. Idaho ending the year with 3 games in a row against Utah. If they have to face the Grizzlies in the first round, that would be potentially 10 games in a row against the Grizzlies and the Idaho Steelheads. I mean, hold on to your butts, because
I tell you what, man, I love your division. I love the Mountain Division. Listen, every game we've played this year against the Mountain, and we've played every team except for Idaho.
Correct.
Has been fun, has been every game has had a little bit of something, right? There's been fights, there's been goals, there's been big saves, there's been close games, there's been close losses. I look back to that Utah game on January 9th when Utah came to Cincinnati. And, I remember saying to myself, man, this is going to be a really tough team to play come playoff time. And obviously it wouldn't be until the conference finals if the Cyclones are, fortunate enough to get that far. But I love the way that each other. And I've always broken down, you've got a lot of talent down south. You've got a good mixture of skill down south. You've got a good mixture of skill and toughness in both the North and the Central, but I feel like that Mountain Division is all tough. I mean, there is some skill out there, obviously, but I mean, that I call that the Black and Blue Division, because I feel like just those teams, they play each other so often. I mean, I think I read somewhere that Utah had 67 games in division, 65, something like that.
Sounds about right.
Games in division this year. I think Rapid City and Utah played 6-7 games in a row against one another. So being able to be that familiar with a team, I think has been a lot of fun to watch it. And I do enjoy catching some of those late games, listening to some of the other broadcasters around the league, seeing how Idaho's doing, Colorado's doing, Utah, seeing how they're doing, Tulsa, things like that. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, you've got Idaho, Tulsa, and Utah have already clinched, but Idaho, Tulsa, and Utah can still finish anywhere from 1 through 3. But how would you like to play 10 straight games against Utah? That sounds like it'd be, man, at what point do you stop getting mad at each other? You know what I mean? Because you play 3 games together, it's going to set the table. We've got the table setter, folks, for the playoffs. They played 3 games against each other to end the regular season. Now we're going to playoffs. And by game 3, I'm like, all right, I'm getting sick of you. Like, do I have to hit you again? We've already fought 4 times. I have to fight you again. You know what I mean? So does boredom kick in when you have to play potentially 10 games against the same team?
I mean, Idaho has had to play Rapid City a lot this year.
Yeah.
17 times they play each other. And, they finish up their series. Idaho, last year, I noticed Idaho, they had I think they may have lost a handful of games against Rapid City. I want to say maybe 2 or 3. They're looking to do the same this season. They're 11-1-2 against Rapid City. Yeah. And so, looking at that and just looking at Idaho played Colorado a lot last season too, in all fairness, because of proximity and just how travel is out here in the West. But yeah, I mean, with Idaho and Tulsa, I mean, they've both won 4 games in a row. Tulsa is 8-2 in their last 10. Idaho's 6-3-1 in their last 10. And ultimately, it's just going to be a race to the finish. And, it's just going to be, we're going to have to go to the camera because it's going to be too close to call. And Tulsa has a game in hand. Go ahead.
That's what you like, though. I mean, I think, the fun, the romantic part about especially hockey is the playoff race. It's the drama. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now granted, I've spent the last 3 years battling for playoff spots and watching teams come down to the final weekend for a playoff spot here in Cincy. So I'd be lying to you if I told you that I wasn't happy that this team has clinched a spot, with 76 weeks to go in the season. But, I will say there was something fun about playing calling meaningful games in March and April. I remember 2 years ago, Cyclones missed out on playoffs by 4 points. We had to go down to Greenville and South Carolina for 2 games. We lost in a shootout on Friday, but because somebody lost, if we won on Saturday and that other team lost on Saturday, we will have gotten the last playoff spot on the final day of the season. Well, we ended up losing the game.
Oh, man.
But that was a lot of fun to be a part of. And obviously, I know the fan bases out there. You want your team to go 72-0. You want to go 16-0 and sweep through the playoffs, and or maybe you go 16-1. You lose game, because you're going to get home ice advantage, right? So you have the first 2 games at home. Maybe you lose game 4 on the road, so you can win game 5 at home in the Kelly Cup Finals. Maybe you do that, but no, I think fans would love that. But there's something fun, I think, about being able to be in a playoff race and to watch playoff races and to see, the joy of victory, the agony of defeat, all those cliches you can throw out, every Rudy moment you can find, right? I think there's something fun about that. But just watching your division out there, and again, I mentioned the North as well, and even seeing where like Orlando and Jacksonville and South Carolina, and even Atlanta, seeing where those teams are going to finish up. It's been pretty interesting to watch just all the close races and how every game, basically from Valentine's Day until the end of the regular season next weekend, every single game is going to mean something.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect way to transition into the Puck World segment. And just to give you some peace of mind, Everett, I'm going to cue the music, and I won't lose you this time, because again, just a brief pause for Puck World and the announcement of the segment and everything. So let me cue up the music.
It's the neighbor. Blame the neighbor. It's all your neighbor's fault.
It's all the neighbor's fault. Yeah, he's got to stop watching Stranger Things and catching up.
Stop playing Fortnite. We'll be there it'll be there after this.
Breaking down the major stories in hockey, it's time for Puck World.
All right, we're into our second segment of the program. Hockey's a big sport that stretches far and wide. With that in mind, we take a look at all the big stories from the whole realm of hockey, or the ECHL, as we like to focus on, in our middle segment of the In the Corners podcast called Puck World. All right, so Everett, I got a question for you here on the chat line, on the Mixler chat line.
Okay.
Our devoted listener, the original Swagmaster.
Oh boy.
Yes. Well, he's a good one. He pays attention. He's very knowledgeable. Yes. He has listened to 3 Cincinnati games and loves to listen to your play-by-play. That's his first comment. So kudos
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Another question he had for you, before we talk about the league and the other divisional races as well, as you were touching on with Atlanta and everything being, interesting storylines to keep an eye on as we go into that. With Cincinnati getting the bump up, the Cincinnati Football Club getting the bump up from the USL to Major League Soccer this year.
Yeah.
His question is, has that hurt the attendance of the hockey games at all, or has the winning kept that from happening? Is the organization worried about that moving forward into the future?
Well, first of all, I think we as an organization are very happy for the city of Cincinnati to have another gem in the crown, so to speak, of the Queen City. I mean, you've got the oldest Major League Baseball team in the Reds that plays right next door. If you're pretty good with the driver, you can probably hit a golf ball from our front porch and get a decent roll down to Paul Brown where the Bengals play. So being able to have such a very rich sports tradition in Cincinnati is something that this town loves. And, what FC Cincinnati has been able to come in and do in a relatively short time with all their fans, the sellouts, they were, number 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was no soccer in Cincinnati, and now there's an MLS team. So, I think that's remarkable. For us as an organization, I think the fact that our sports don't really overlap that much simply because of the time of the year. I mean, this year, obviously, with hopefully Cincinnati going on a fairly long playoff run, it'll be a little bit different because you're going to have the Reds, you're going to have Cincinnati, you're going to have the Bengal or the Reds, the Cyclones, and FC. You're going to have all those teams playing at the same time. Obviously, I'd be foolish to say that, it's dollars in the market. So anytime that someone goes to a Reds game or someone goes to an FC game, it's money they're not spending with us. But we feel very confident in not only our product on the ice and off the ice, but we feel very confident in the people of the city. And they've recognized that the Cyclones have won. And the running joke is that the playoff drought in Cincinnati is it's been 29 years since a team in Cincinnati has won a championship. Well, that's not true because the Cyclones won in 2008, 2010, and then went to a third Kelly Cup final in 2014. So, this team has been winning, but, we're happy with the success that FC's been having. And from a neighborly standpoint, from a city pride standpoint, I mean, whatever brings more attention, brings more people to this great city is only going to benefit all of us. But, we feel confident that we're going to see our attendance numbers go up, and, we're going to pack US Bank Arena for the playoffs. I think once they get going, and, Cyclones, if they're fortunate enough to get out of the first round to the second round, conference finals, definitely to the finals. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see 10,000 plus down at US Bank Arena every game. So, we're not worried. We welcome the competition, so to speak, and we're very proud of the pride that they've brought to this city, and hopefully that can continue with us.
Yeah, and back in 2010, I'm just I don't know. There was an opponent that faced off against Cincinnati in the Kelly Cup Finals, and it's not too important, in regards.
Yeah. I can't remember. I can't remember what team that was from 2010, but I think their city was known for blue turf or something. I'm not sure.
There may or may not be a Brabham Cup Western Conference Championship banner hanging from that year in CenturyLink Arena in Boise.
Oh, okay.
Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, so you guys got the second place banner that year. That was cool. That's cute. That's neat.
Man. Oh, I love it. Good little banter between two people that the home markets we represent. Oh yeah, gotta love it.
Oh yeah.
And I will say, now that Cincy and Idaho are both in the same conference, which wasn't the case back in 2009, 2010. Yeah. I for personal reasons, because I'd love to see Coach Thomas and your smiling face again, of course, Everett again. I just think that would be just a fantastic matchup in the Western Conference Final were that to occur. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. And again, we are in the Puck World segment, so let's talk about some of the other divisions. We've been focusing mainly on the Central and the Mountain because those are the divisions we cover in the Western Conference here. But in the South Division, the only team that has clinched both a playoff spot and the division has been the Florida Everblades. Nipping at the heels of the Cincinnati Cyclones for the Brabham Cup there. They've got 96 points, and it's ultimately Florida and everybody else. I mean, things change, but they stay the same. Orlando's got 77 points in second. Jacksonville with 72 in third, and South Carolina precariously has 70 points. They've also been a team that's been struggling down the stretch in Atlanta. If they could just kick it in the butt. I mean, South Carolina has turned it around a little bit, with some lineups and some shakeups after the trade deadline. They've won their last 4 games. Atlanta's won their last 2. So, South Carolina's got 70. Atlanta's got 68. Norfolk and Greenville. I mean, Greenville has been statistically eliminated. Them and Allen are the only 2 teams that are officially eliminated at this point on March 25th. But man, Atlanta just riding Sean Bonner, their goaltender. Just he's a dark horse for goaltender of the year or MVP candidate, if I would say anything myself.
It's funny you mentioned Sean Bonner. He was actually my first year here in Cincinnati. He was in camp with us, and him and Jordan Ruby, who is doing really well in Wheeling right now. They were both in camp with us a few years ago. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they've now have found success. And actually, I think they even signed Sean Bonner that year as an e-bug for a game, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think with Florida, how many times do you see this with Florida? Every year. I mean, Florida just, they dominate that division, right? I mean, it's Florida and then, you know what I mean? I don't think, South Carolina a couple of years ago when they went to the Kelly Cup final, I think they beat Florida in 7 games, if I'm not mistaken. I think Orlando took Florida to 6 in the playoffs last year. So it seems like this team really really goes over the top in the regular season. Last year, being able to see them in the Kelly Cup final against Colorado, I mean, those were a lot of fun games, I think, to watch. But I feel like I'm waiting for Florida, hopefully not this year, but I'm waiting for Florida to take that step and to win their next championship. You know what I mean? Because they've had a lot of regular season success, and I put them in the same boat as Toledo. They've had a lot of regular season success. They've had a lot of first and second round playoff success. But I'm curious, when will be the year that we're going to see Florida, take that next step and win the championship? Because I believe when was their last championship? 13 maybe? Or is that that was Reading that year?
Let's take a look here. Florida's last championship.
I'm not sure when their last one was.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they've won the Brabham Cup a couple times in the past.
Yeah, they won the Brabham Cup. They've got multiple divisional titles, and they're always a team that is very, very skilled. They get decent help, I would say, just from an outsider perspective. They get decent help from Carolina, their affiliate. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it is a destination in the ECHL. I mean, I'll put Cincinnati being in a major metropolitan area. I'll put Indy for the same reasons, being able to be, in a bigger size city. But I mean, every team in the South, I mean, you're on the beach, you're in Orlando, you're in Charleston, you're in Greenville, you're in Atlanta, Norfolk, which is not too far from Virginia Beach. You've got a lot of really desirable towns for, a bunch of 24, 5-year-old hockey players. So they always seem to find the cream of the crop when it comes to talent. And it shows because they're routinely, like we said, winning Brabham Cups, making it to conference finals, making it to Kelly Cup finals. But again, just haven't won that big one in quite some time.
Their one and only Kelly Cup came in 2011-12. Okay. So 2012 Kelly Cup champions. But they've won the conference championship 4 times, division championship 6 times, and the regular season titles before even it was the Brabham Cup back in 99 and 2000, but 3 of those as well. So
yeah. So again, a team that's always been there, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier when I was talking to, Commissioner Creelan and Joe Ernst about you've got, teams that are ready to take this next step. And obviously working for the Cyclones, I hope it's not this year, but when will Florida take that next step? When will they be able to, get out of the division, get out of the conference? And again, they made it last year, falling to Colorado, which was, back-to-back championships for them, which against 2 teams from the South too, because they lost to South Carolina the one year and then lost to Florida last year. Correct. So, they've had 2, the South Division has given you your last 2 Eastern Conference representatives, and actually probably going back further than that, representatives in the Kelly Cup Finals. So it says something about the style of hockey and the talent and the teams that are down there in the South Division. But just wondering, and I'll say it again, when Florida will take that next step to win that big one since 2012.
Yeah, Florida, South Carolina, the past 2 years against the Colorado Eagles. You had Wheeling against Allen in 2016. South Carolina lost to Allen in 2015. And Cincinnati lost to the Alaska Aces in 2014. The last 5 Kelly Cup champions have been from the Mountain Division. So
well, let's hope that streak ends this year.
Well, let's hope it doesn't. But I call it the Wild Wild West for a reason, and for that reason, and for just look at the penalty minutes column, and you'll see. I mean, not afraid to fight out here in the Mountain Division for sure. But yeah,
28 for Idaho, bunch of thugs out there. 1349 in Rapid City, as Don Cherry would say, bunch of jerks up there. Yeah, but again, so that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Every single flipping time we play a Mountain Division team, a fight or a big hit or something, a brouhaha, as I like to say, happens. A couple weeks ago, the Cyclones were in Kansas City. Vas Glotov takes a massive hit from behind. It sparks a all-out on-ice brawl. And our fans are convinced that WrestleMania is going to begin early on Wednesday here when KC comes back to town. So, but again, Kansas City, a very tough as nails team that has always played the Cyclones tough. A couple of years ago, Cincinnati was up in Idaho. We were Idaho Friday, Saturday, Alaska the following week, but all 5 of those games were just very heavy, hard, physically demanding games because I don't know what's in the water out west, and you guys are like loading bales of hay on your way to the rink or something like that, mountain climbing to the rink. But like it is amazing just how tough that division is every single year consistently. Yeah,
it's uncanny just how it caters to the stereotype of the Wild Wild West, and you bring out the 6-shooters, and obviously it's a bit of a misnomer because you've got teams like Allen and Wichita and Kansas City in the quote unquote Mountain Division, but even they have retooled their lineups to really kind of dive in and throw fists both literally and figuratively with teams like Utah and Idaho and Rapid City, and back in the day, Colorado and Alaska as well. So speaking of Western Conference, Everett, 5 teams have qualified for the playoffs so far. Cincinnati and Toledo from the Central, Idaho, Tulsa, and Utah from the Mountain. And in the Eastern Conference, only 2. Florida, like we mentioned in the South Division there, and Newfoundland, as you mentioned before, in the North Division, kind of a bit of a mirror with Cincinnati in the fact that they have so many NHL and AHL contracted players that are playing for the Growlers up there in such a great affiliation tree. I mean, the proof is in the pudding with them, atop their division, and let's see the magic number. They could win it. They could win the North outright. They've at least clinched a share of the North Division title, but they could win it outright with a win this coming Friday night, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did. It's kind of same situation in the North as it is in the South. It's Newfoundland and everybody. And Adirondack, everybody from Adirondack to Reading, like you mentioned earlier, it's going to be a fun race to keep tabs on and to see. Aside, if you're involved with that team's fan base, probably not so much any of those teams in the North, but spots 3 through 6 are separated by 4 points. So
and looking at Newfoundland, I mean, I feel like with that organization, they really have embraced the local and the local flavor of their hockey prospects. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember reading that they have multiple players. I don't know the exact number, but they've got multiple players who are from the Maritimes, who are from Eastern Canada, essentially going back home. It's like Brampton in the sense that a lot of their players are from the GTA. So they can really, cherry pick some of that local talent. It also helps that that Toronto and Toronto have been helping, like Cincinnati, with the affiliation there. But that's another division that's been very fun to watch. And we've gone to the Cyclones, have gone to Manchester. We've seen Maine this year, seen Worcester, Brampton. We've seen Adirondacks come here. Brampton actually comes back to Cincinnati next Friday for our fan appreciation night. So up there, I would love to see Newfoundland have success, an expansion team. I would like to see Newfoundland and Maine, two very proud former AHL markets who have seen their teams go away and, longing for hockey, craving to have hockey back. It's been nice to see the success that they've had there. Brampton, and I mean, this is a conversation that we've all had, off the record with our friends, but all the stuff and the rumors you hear about Brampton, it would be nice to see them have some success and to see them, get to the second round of the playoffs and, give that area something to cheer about as well. Obviously Manchester, Adirondack, two very, like Maine, like St. John, very proud former, and Worcester too, AHL communities who have now embraced the ECHL. And then you got Reading, who has seen a lot of success. The Cyclones lost in 2013, I believe. 2013, the last time the Clones won the division championship. Reading beat Cincinnati in 6 games, went on to win the Kelly Cup that year. So, they've had success. They've seen success. Every team, I think, in that division is deserving of playoff success. And it's another division that has just been so much fun to pay attention to and to be a part of, on a nightly basis to watch what Adirondack does. What did Maine do tonight? Wow, Maine kept winning. Maine is 6-2-2 in their last 10 games. And, look at Brampton, 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're 5th place right now, but they're 2 points back of 3rd. They're 4 points back of 2nd. So Brampton could finish in 2nd place. And we could be talking about the Brampton Beast either going golfing or hosting a first-round playoff series. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me, just how close that division is.
And it's all about streaks. I've talked about this with a number of broadcasters that I've had on the show. It's about getting hot at the right time. And the perfect sports analogy, I'm gonna digress outside of hockey for a little bit here, but being a football fan, I'm reminded of the New York Giants. Wow. I mean, I'm just the year that, they went to face off against, the 18-0 New England Patriots, but coming into the playoffs, they were a wild card but they had momentum, and that's such a key thing heading into the playoffs. We'll switch back to hockey now. Hot goaltender, just the team clicking on all cylinders chemistry wise. You got all your players back. To me, that New York Giants team, I believe it was 2008. That New York Giants team, going in, defeating a hot, history making Patriots team. I believe Randy Moss was on that team, and of course Tom Brady, and you go 18-0 and you're going for 19-0, and then this scrappy, group and the David Tyree catch off the side of the helmet from Eli Manning, and it's like it's all about momentum, and it's all about just trusting in your systems and being in the right place at the right time. And that North Division it's one streak away. I mean, Brampton, winning their last 3 games, they're one streak away from surging up into one of those playoff spots that Manchand and Maine currently hold. With that in mind, we have another question from the original Swagmaster, ties in well with this. He asked, so hypothetically, let's say Cincinnati gets to the Kelly Cup finals, knock on wood.
Yes.
Who do you see emerging from either the South Division or the North Division as a potential opponent for the Cyclones were they to make it to the Kelly Cup final?
Oh, baby. Based off of who we've seen this year, I'm going to go with Adirondack or Manchester, one of those two teams. Manchester beat the Cyclones at home in Manchester earlier in the year. Adirondack came to Cincinnati. The Cyclones were down, I want to say 4-2. Came back and won that game 5-4, I believe. I don't have the notes for them here, but again, playoff atmosphere style game. I can really see Manchester or Adirondack coming out of that division. I think out of the conference. I think based off of their body of work, the easy choices obviously are Newfoundland and Florida. But I'm going to go back to my original Florida question. I mean, they went to the Kelly Cup Finals last year, but again, until I can see Florida consistently turn that corner, so to speak, and going from division champions, Brabham Cup champions, ousted in the conference finals, to division champions, Brabham Cup champions. Hey, this is their third Kelly Cup final in 5 years, or their second Kelly Cup final in 4 years, or whatever. And to see them taking that step, I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet. But again, a lot of talent on that team, very talented, very, very well coached. Brad Ralph, I got to meet Brad Ralph for the first time at the All-Star game in Toledo. And, he is all business. And I think that, you can see what his coaching has done for that organization, because he gets the best out of his players because they win. They win consistently year in and year out. Again, going back to Newfoundland, obviously with the amount of success that they've had in their first year in the ECHL, it's easy to see Newfoundland as well. And I think Newfoundland has I think Newfoundland probably has the best advantage of any team in the ECHL in playoffs because of travel. You only get to cut. There's flights in Newfoundland. I think all but one or all but two of their home games this year were played on Tuesday, Wednesdays, Friday, and Saturdays. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a rough travel schedule for a team to have to go up there a couple days early. You're busing to your nearest airport, flying into Toronto, laying over in Toronto, flying up to Newfoundland, blah, 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 blah. Newfoundland's used to it. And I think a team that does that regularly, I think, has a tremendous advantage there. So again, Newfoundland makes it to the Kelly Cup final. Newfoundland makes it to the conference finals in the East. I mean, you can't help but have to like their chances because of that fact alone, in addition to the fact that they've got a very talented group of players up there as well.
Again, very similar parallel to the Cincinnati and Newfoundland just success this year in regards to how much, just how much talent is within the affiliation tree. And, it's from the 2 seasons I've covered the Steelheads, the AHL contracted players that come down and the NHL contracted players that come down from the Texas Stars to play with the Steelheads. Last year it was guys like Max French and Cole Yulee, who's on Utah and the Colorado Eagles on an AHL contract, but down with Utah. And this year it's been guys like Brad McClure and defensemen like Nolan Glukowski and Andre Vala. They're to have talented AHL and NHL contracted guys in the pipeline for an affiliation does wonders. And obviously there is something to be said about recruiting and, getting the ECHL contracted guys to buy in and recruit it and giving them opportunities as well. It's not just an AHL thing, but it's a whole big picture thing. And obviously Coach Thomas, with how much time he spent in the league, he's definitely got it pretty well down pat, even spending 5 years away coaching collegiate hockey over there in Alaska.
Well, and I think that affiliation piece is so important because having talked to a lot of broadcasters who are still in the league, broadcasters who have moved up to the American League, old coaches, equipment guys, you name it. Having talked to so many different people in my 4 years now in Cincinnati across different teams, the one thing that they tell me is that the biggest reason for a lot of teams' success when it comes to winning championships is your affiliation. Obviously, the Cyclones have been lucky enough to have 12 affiliated players all year long. That number has fluctuated between, plus or minus 2 all year. So there really hasn't been the mass call-ups and the mass send-downs that some teams have. But if you look at a lot of the former Kelly Cup winners, we'll go back, 2019? We'll go back maybe 5, 6, 7 years. Mm-hmm. If you look at the vast majority of those teams, I'd be really interested to see how their roster changed in early April. Once their AHL affiliate season, their NHL affiliate season was done, and the guys that they sent down. I mean, I'd be willing to bet money that over half the rosters were of AHL higher level contracted players, taking nothing away from your ECHL guys, the guys who, worked just as hard, the guys who played all 72 games, or the guys who may have only played 20 games because they had to sit in the stands because there was some guy up top that had to play over them, taking nothing away from what they accomplished for their teams. But I'd be very interested to see just how many of those championship teams had more than 7, 8, 9, 10 AHL affiliated players on their roster, and then see where that team finished compared to the players or the teams that had, 5 and under affiliate guys, and see how they did.
That would be an interesting thing to look at. Just the transaction wire, how their AHL affiliate did in the playoffs leading up to that. Yeah. I mean, I know Texas made the Calder Cup final last year against the Toronto Marlies. And so Idaho made their first second round appearance under head coach Neil Graham and his 4-season coaching. I mean, you talk about Brad Ralph. Ralph had Neil Graham on the bench and basically, showed him the ropes in coaching before he went on to coach the Kelowna Rockets up in the WHL for a season before taking the Everblades job. And so, that's a very intriguing question. I think, I think I might look into that a little bit, and maybe an article might come out of that or something. But let's digress one moment before we end the Puck World segment, and let's talk about the big news that has been not a big surprise from those of us that have been inside the ECHL, rumblings and everything like that. But it was made official today that the ECHL is going to finally, league-wide, utilize video replay for the 2019-20 season and moving forward from that. And at the referee's discretion, these scenarios are where the circumstances would be eligible for instant replay. You've got the puck crossing the goal line, the puck entering the net using a distinct kicking motion, the puck directed, batted, or thrown into the net by an attacking player, the puck entering the net before the goal frame is dislodged from its moorings, and the puck crossing the goal line prior to time expiring. So all of those scenarios for potential game scoring, it's all reviewable by replay. And I know 4 test markets, Idaho being one of them here in Boise, Kalamazoo, Toledo, and Worcester were all chosen as the 4 test markets for the 2018-19 season before now officially grouping up with all 27 teams. Sporfy is going to be providing the coverage for that, a Sinbin sponsor. Thank you, Sporfy. We do appreciate it, as you hear in the intro and the outro rolls for the In the Corners podcast. But thoughts on this? Long overdue, I would say.
Yeah, no, I think it is. And I'm going to put my league office hat on here for a second, because having worked in a league office before in the USHL, replay was very, very much like here in the ECHL, a hot topic. It was a hot button issue. A lot of folks were upset that the USHL didn't have replay. And I don't think that a lot of fans may realize the commitment financially that it takes to commit to replay. And it's very, very easy to say that the NHL does it, the AHL does it. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, they do. But what I think gets lost is that you're dealing with leagues that make millions instead of thousands. I don't know what the ECHL makes, but
sure, yeah.
NHL last year probably cleared $100 million, right? I don't think the ECHL got close to that. So being able to mandate teams, and again, this is just my experience from the USHL standpoint. So I've not talked to anyone in our league, so I'm not trying to break anything here, but just in my experience, having worked with it before, it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot harder than just waving a flick of the wrist and saying, all right, replay's installed. That said, it's really nice to see it start somewhere. And being in a division where you've got 2 of the 4 teams that have replay, The Cyclones have had goals waived off. They've had goals counted because of replay. At US Bank Arena, there have been goals that have been waived off that were definite goals, and then there were goals that, we probably got away with one there because of the replay.
Sure.
It happens, right? It happens. But I think ultimately, and again, this goes back to the conversation that I had with Ryan Creelan back in Fort Wayne over the weekend. This goes back to ultimately the ECHL, the AHL, the NHL. You hear it all the time. They want to get to that 31 model, right? Well, I think if you want to, when you're working closely with the NHL, the AHL, and hockey ops departments, and the way that affiliations have now become great and have become so beneficial and prosperous for a lot of teams, I think it only makes sense that you start to see a lot of that success the teams are having moving to a operation standpoint. And what I mean by operations is I mean from the hockey ops department, from the replay department, from the officiating department, so being able to have the same tools that the leagues we all aspire to get to have, at least some variants of those tools, I think is huge. And to be able to review goals next year, who knows where that's going to lead. Now, obviously, this is just the first step, and you're going to have the folks who are going to say, all right, about time, thank the Lord we have instant replay for goals. What about offsides now? What about this? What about that? Well, baby steps. But I think the fact that the ECHL and Sportfy have worked together, and Sportfy is a product that we've used in the past. I know that Kalamazoo has used it, and there's a reason I think why they were chosen is because they have been able to do so much for the teams that have replay, and then just for teams who want to improve their social media, game and clip highlights and that kind of thing. So being able to partner with Sportfy and on a league-wide initiative, I think it's great for the league. And I think that, this is just another step in making this already great league that much more legitimate, that much more in line with those two parent organizations, those two parent leagues up top.
I agree. I mean, since the ECHL, after the CHL folded, back in 2014, the Central Hockey League, was a competitor. And now with the ECHL being the premier AA hockey league, as they advertise themselves to be, they're the only game at the AA level now, and they're the only league now. And it's the chips have fallen where they may, and now you have the NHL, AHL, and ECHL, and the SPHL at the single A level that their 10 teams feed. I mean, just seeing the movement of players getting sent up and down and paying a little more attention than I did last year to the SPHL and the movement between them and the ECHL, there is just a good feeder system that is occurring between all, I'll say, 4 leagues, because that's what I've noticed. Go ahead.
No, and I was going to completely agree with you there. And I think this time right now, the last 7 years in this league, I mean, what a time to be alive, right? Because I think the ECHL, and you credit Brian McKenna, you credit Ryan Creelan now, Joe Babick, everybody in the office, the marketing team, the communications team, you credit everybody in New Jersey for trying to shed that old moniker, that old belief that the ECHL is essentially just advanced beer league hockey. You go to a fight, you go to a bar, and a hockey game breaks out. And they have worked so hard, and organizations are now stable. The management in all these markets is now stable. You've got, NHL coaches who have come up through the ECHL. You've got, I think the 658th or 670th player, something like that, with ECHL ties just made their NHL debut this week.
Right.
How many of that 600 have come in the last 5 years? I'd be willing to bet probably half, because of this league's commitment to development from the top down. And I mean, from a general managing standpoint, coaching standpoint, players, PR, equipment, ticket sales, everybody in this organization and in these organizations now has a goal of moving up. And I think that the NHL sees that from the top down. And, the ECHL has become, just in the last 5 years alone, I think, a very, very attractive property for hockey players wanting to further their careers, because before then it was, well, if I don't get an American League deal, I'm going to go over to Europe.
Right.
Because now, I'm not going to go to the coast. I'm not going to go to the Central League. I'm not going to go, I'm going to go to the American League. I'm going to go to the IHL, or I'm going to go overseas. Now you actually have Hobie Baker candidates. You actually have players who are coming out of high-level junior, high-level college programs wanting to play in the ECHL, wanting to grow their careers here because of the affiliations, because of the facilities, because of the commitment to excellence that these organizations have from the top down. So, I mean, you're right. It's being able to see all of that come to fruition in the 3.5, almost 4 years now that I've been here, and then just hearing about it from all my friends and colleagues who have been here longer than I have, and just hearing and seeing how much this league has grown over time has been incredible. And again, this replay piece now is just another step in further legitimizing and further improving a league that is already, I think on a super upward trending path.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And to kind of give a name to what you were saying, it's like, last season when Philippe DeRosier was up with the Texas Stars and Ryan Farragher was with the Stockton Heat, the two goaltenders that had seen the primary, chunk of time in the first 3/4 of the season, Idaho went out and traded for Thomas Scholl and got him from Adirondack. And needless to say, I think that's worked out for them. But in regards to his backup, after the collegiate season was over, Idaho went out and signed a kid by the name of Michael Bitzer, who, as you mentioned, was a Hobie Baker Award finalist and a Mike Richter Award finalist in the WCHA up there at Bemidji State University in upstate Minnesota. And so for him to get an opportunity after his collegiate career was over to come and play for Idaho for the last portion of the season there before, signing with Rapid City this year and then getting traded to Atlanta. Now he's, backing up, Sean Bonner. It's like that right there is the perfect example of, an opportunity for a kid coming out of college and one of those, 'tis the season, it must be spring, all these collegiate signings, that's putting a name to that situation that you just stated. So, yeah.
And you know what, too? Also, I will say that another piece, and having been a USHL guy and having always carried the NCAA Tier 1 model for development, I had no idea just how many skilled players and how many skilled people come out of Canadian colleges as well. I mean, you've got a lot of these teams in Western Canada, in Eastern Canada, doing so well and sending their prospects to, high-level organizations. And I think it's great to see the development that's come out of there as well.
Yeah, definitely. The NAHL, the USHL. I mean, the ECHL is a developmental league, but I don't think it's a big surprise that a lot of broadcasters and players and just, a lot of people come out of the juniors in that system as well and are now in the ECHL and will just move up the ladder. I mean, it's
and I think that's also it's about providing avenues and atmospheres for players. Now it's I don't have to go to the OHL and then go to the AHL just to get to the NHL. I mean, I look at a guy, Thomas Scholl, another Bowling Green alum, who Idaho fans are very familiar with, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes.
He spent some time in the SPHL, and now he is in Idaho doing well. Didn't he have like 5 shutouts in a row or something like that last year, or 5 shutouts when he first got into the league? Like, he was doing amazing things, and here's a kid who, 2 weeks earlier was playing in the SPHL out of college. So being able to see where guys like that come from and to see all of the development from the bottom to the top, that again only goes to help this sport and I think this league prosper.
I agree. Yeah. Great discussion about the lower leagues and the feeding and just, yeah, it's all good with affiliations and even, yeah, the junior level as well. I think hockey is just getting to a point where, talent is being cultivated at an all-time high. Whether you're in
absolutely
Canada, the United States, Europe, I mean, it's become, there's a lot of people that are very knowledgeable about the sport. And so to impart that knowledge on the next generation and to get the talented players, that you see at the next level, NHL is coming to mind, like an Austin Matthews coming out of Arizona, for crying out loud. It's like,
oh yeah,
it's just amazing to see, where the next batch of talent is going to come from. So,
well, and look at all these junior leagues too. I mean, when I was in the USHL league office, we were doing showcases in California. We were doing showcases and we're planning, at least, I don't know if they've done any yet, but we were at least planning showcases in Florida. I mean, you mentioned Austin Matthews. There's a player in the Vegas system, Ryan Carpenter, another Bowling Green guy, who went to Florida. Brady Vale from North Carolina. Chase Pearson, who just signed with the Detroit Red Wings out of Atlanta. I mean, a lot of very non-traditional hockey markets are seeing some very talented players come out of these markets. And, I love being able to see Allen have a team survive and do well. The Texas Stars do well. You hear all the nonsense about Arizona and about Florida, and Tampa's been able to do it. Carolina, the bunch of jerks, has been able to do it.
Oh yeah.
The Charlotte Checkers have been able to do it, but being able to see teams in California prosper and to see teams in places that aren't covered with snow 7 months out of the year has been great. And hockey for so long, and then as someone who's born and raised in Detroit, I mean, I come from hockey town. I remember when the Red Wings won their back-to-back cups. I remember when Michigan and Michigan State were playing for NCAA championships. Being able to see all the success that is coming out of a non-traditional place and to see a lot of these places embrace hockey like Detroit has, like Chicago has, like Minnesota has, the list goes on and on and on and on. To see these places embrace hockey is phenomenal, and I love it. I mean, I'm one of very few people, and I know fans are going to roll their eyes at me, but I would love one day for there to be a Tampa Bay Nashville final, a Florida
yes.
Arizona final, right? A LA Tampa final. That would be fantastic, just to see two non-traditional hot warm weather market teams on display for the whole world to see.
I mean, you talk about Vegas, coming into the league last year. I mean, and getting to the Stanley Cup final. And there are going to be those that are the detractors and say, well, the expansion draft, helps set them up for success. You can't buy that kind of chemistry, though. That's the thing. No. You could have a team loaded with talent. Yeah, go ahead.
And in talking, I remember, last season, in talking with a few, Matt McDonald, our old head coach, who knew a few people in that organization, they got a lot of really good players, but that team came together because they saw themselves as the land of misfit toys. Right. Oh, our teams didn't want us. Our 30 other teams didn't want us. So you know what? We're going to take this chemistry. We're going to take this locker room and we're going to stick it where, because we're going to prove to you that you made a terrible mistake letting us go in the expansion draft.
And you look at a guy like Derek England, who
started
his professional career in Las Vegas with the ECHL Wranglers back in 03-04. You want to talk about a throwback. The Wranglers, that was a good rival for Idaho. That was a good rivalry right there. But, Derek England starting his career with the Wranglers and bouncing, between the AHL and ECHL until finally getting his chance with the Penguins back in 09-10, and then getting drafted by the Golden Knights in that expansion draft after the Flames made him available, or didn't protect him, rather. Yeah, land of misfit toys. And, just non-traditional hockey market that had been having meetings there, and the awards ceremony for the AHL, or the NHL rather, in Las Vegas for a number of years before that, and the outdoor game between, the Kings and I'm forgetting who else back in 91, to get Wayne Gretzky to play outside of Caesar's Palace. And it's just, these non-traditional hockey markets. I know Gary Bettman gets a hard time for having a soft spot for them, if you will, as you see it with Arizona and their ownership difficulties and the attendance difficulties in Florida and everything like that. But no, I mean, there are certain non-traditional hockey markets that have excelled. And I think Tampa Bay is one of them. Carolina's had their struggles, certainly, but they're reinventing themselves. And, like you said, the bunch of jerks down there and the post-game celebrations that they're, championing, and a lot of the old-timer hockey folks are rolling their eyes, but it's helping with attendance. The players are having a great time. It's like, isn't this supposed to be a sport? Aren't sports supposed to be fun?
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because we got into an argument, and I'm not going to go into the antithesis of
sure
this argument, because we'll be here for the rest of the night. But we were getting into a conversation on the bus a couple weeks ago about I am a fan of a certain player in the NHL. I am a big PK Subban.
Okay,
I love PK Subban. PK Subban, I think, has a reputation of, people think that he makes things all about him, and people think that he's a selfish player, whatnot. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know. That may be true. That may not be true. I don't know. But I look at the kind of personality that he has. I look at what he's been able to do for charity. I look at just how much fun he has playing the game of hockey. I look at Carolina, how much fun they're having with those post-game celebrations, shoving it in Don Cherry's face with the T-shirts and the moniker and all that stuff. And I'm like, that is what the sport needs. I think for the longest time, hockey has been, like you said, the old boys club. It's act like you've been here before, chip pucks in, get pucks out, take it one shift at a time, and hope you come out on top. All right, that's great, cool. There's a reason why I think hockey overall, unfortunately, is at the bottom of most Americans' thought, is because unlike the NFL, the NBA, where the stars and individuality may be celebrated more, hockey is more of a team game. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. But I feel like the league, and I'll even throw baseball in here as well, your best player in baseball is probably the most boring person on the planet, in Mike Trout. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Mike Trout is the most talented player ever, but just no personality there.
Right.
You can't sell that. You can sell Russell Wilson or Russell Westbrook. You can sell James Harden. You can sell NFL players, right? I wish the NHL, and especially in those non-traditional markets, I wish there was more PK Subbans in terms of the outgoingness of the personality, the willingness to have fun. Paul Bissonnette's another guy. I think Paul Bissonnette, when he was in the league, he embraced kind of that, I'm a career minor leaguer and I'm a grinder, but I like to go out and have fun. Brad Marchand, another guy that I think sometimes deservedly so gets a bad rap. I mean, he can be a little bit of a pest on the ice, but you can tell when he's in the right place, when he's in a right headspace, he's having fun. And I think we need more of that to just help draw more attention and to have more personalities in the game so you can have stars to sell. I mean, for the longest time, this Crosby-Ovechkin rivalry was this manufactured rivalry that the NHL and that NBC made, and it's worked. It's worked. The superstars, it's worked. Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, absolutely. Like, you need to celebrate your stars, but I think they should celebrate Austin Matthews more. And I know he plays in Toronto. Celebrate Connor McDavid more. I know he's in Edmonton. Celebrate, a very talented up-and-coming Arizona team, a very talented up-and-coming Carolina team. You know what I mean? I think that if you celebrate some of these things, you're going to get more fans, and don't be afraid of the personality. And I think we, the collective we as hockey people, are turned off sometimes by that individuality. I think it rubs us the wrong, and again, the collective us, it rubs us the wrong way. And I think that's why you see a lot of folks kind of push and shove down that individuality, because I feel like with some NBA players, with some NFL players, the same person that you see in the locker room or in public is the same person that you see in the locker room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rob Gronkowski, the exact same person
Oh, yeah.
in the locker room as he is in the media. And we love Rob Gronkowski. Why then do we hate PK Subban? Because he also has personality. He has a bit of swagger. We love Russell Westbrook. We love James Harden because of the personality that they bring. And again, I know that football and basketball are more individual, seen as more individual sports. But, I don't know. I wish, going along with that, building your brand and building your awareness piece, I wish we were able to show off more of that personality than we do.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into our last segment, closing time. So I'm queuing up the music here, and we'll get a little introduction. And
tell me you have the song. Do you have the song?
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. It's time to wrap up another episode of the In the Corners podcast.
Yeah, it's the Muzak version, I think. I don't know how Matt Harding, my editor-in-chief, swang it, but yeah, it's closing time. Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what he picked out. And I thought it worked out very well. We got the royalty safe version of the song that plays the guitars during the chorus. I know who I want to take me home. There we go. All right, so
there you go.
No, that's great that we're talking about personality in hockey and everything, because a lot of, from what I noticed, I mean, at a very young age, and, to kind of take this into perspective a little bit, a lot of, from what I noticed, growing up in Utah and Colorado, by the way, Colorado College fan, Colorado Avalanche fan, you can keep your Michigan teams. I'll just...
I got nothing against the Avs. I got nothing against, although... So I'm an Oilers fan now. I grew up a Red Wings fan. So I was not a Colorado Avalanche fan. Like, when I first got in hockey, like, real hard, I was in third grade. So this would have been 98-ish, 97, 8, 9, round in there. So the Red Wings and Avs were just coming off of, the Lemieux and the McCarty brawls, and the I remember watching was it Vernon Osgood fight? I'm sorry, not Vernon Osgood. Vernon Waugh fight? I don't know. No, Osgood fought, I think, also, but it was the Vernon Waugh fight, if I'm not mistaken. I remember watching that on TV. So I was not an Avs fan back then, but I love what they've done now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I still obviously say, oh, yeah, Red Wings can lose all they want, and, haha, they missed the playoffs again. But, I mean, obviously deep-seated rivalries still exist from fans from that era, but, not nearly the incendiary heat as it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Oh, yeah. But, growing up during that time, I was a big NBA fan of the Utah Jazz, with them going up against the Chicago Bulls and trying and failing to topple Jordan and Pippen and Rodman and Kukoc, Luke Longley, everybody that in that starting five, to pair up against Stockton and Malone and Brian Russell and, just Jeff Hornacek, and all those names from the Utah Jazz, and and like you said, you see a lot of those guys in the NBA, and a lot of them that you mentioned, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and a lot of the NFL guys as well, the guys that have personality and Rob Gronkowski and everything like that. It's almost, and I know it's a hot button topic, but I know that it's one that you're not afraid to address in the public realm, because I saw you do it on Twitter about a month ago when there were fans that were giving, a black player on the ice, and they were saying racist remarks, and that's the thing is that, I don't want the old guard in hockey to not embrace a guy like PK Subban just because, just because of the fact that I don't want to make it a race thing. I don't want to make it the fact that just because he's black, he shouldn't be, the face of a hockey league that is predominantly, or a league rather, that is predominantly white. I mean, if you have personality, you have personality, and with PK Subban or with Brad Marchand, that's another great example of a guy who has personality. He may not be, like you said, he's got a bit of a reputation as a pest, but, I mean, after he scores that goal after Conor McGregor, after Conor McGregor comes out and, hypes up the fans and does the opening puck drop there in Boston. And after, Marchand scores a goal, he does the little, arm waving strut that McGregor does, and it's like, it's the NHL needs to, they need to, and Major League Baseball to some extent as well, and they need to embrace the guys that have that personality. I mean, another person that comes to mind, Major League Baseball, David Ortiz. I mean, look how much personality he's exuded after them. I mean, even during the fact, in his playing career, just exuberating personality and just a charming, affable guy. And you don't see, the bottom two of the big four major leagues in North America in the NHL and in Major League Baseball, promote these guys. Yeah. And, growing up, I mean, I'm seeing it a lot from a guy like, George Laraque. I'm seeing him very active on social media in regards to his vegan lifestyle and everything like that. And, I can just imagine, you give a guy like a PK Subban. I mean, NBC Sports Network is finally giving him, a reality show to showcase his personality and everything. But yeah, it's a head scratcher why, Major League Baseball and why the National Hockey League haven't spearheaded and promoted these, athletes as fun and as charismatic as they are. Instead, they're stuck in this, team only oriented sort of, and that's fine, because it's a team sport and you got to get along. But yeah, it's just a head scratcher as to why these players aren't promoted the way they are.
And I think, you're starting to see that a little bit. And going back to the first bit of the topic there, I love what the NHL has been doing in recent years with their diversity programming, bringing on Willie O'Ree to really help spearhead that. You look at, oh my goodness, I forget the owner's Snyder in Philadelphia.
See, I'm having a brain fart too.
I forget the owner's name, but he's got like a basically an urban hockey academy for inner city kids in Philadelphia to come out and learn how to play the game of hockey. And you mentioned George Laraque. The reason why I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan is growing up in Detroit. I was a basketball fan growing up. I was a football fan growing up. And, I always thought that hockey was a white boy sport. You know what I mean? Oh, black people don't play hockey. We don't play hockey. We're not going to be out there on ice, on skates. I went to a diverse elementary school when I was in third grade. And a lot of my classmates played hockey. They loved, all they did was talk about hockey. And again, I followed it because I was a sports fan. But again, I didn't know much about hockey, but that's actually how I became an Edmonton Oilers fan, because I went home one night, watched a Red Wings game, and they just so happened to be playing Edmonton, and they had Mike Greer and George Laraque on the same team, and I said, oh, okay, like this I can, all right, so there are people like me people who look like me playing this sport at the highest level. And for any kid to see someone succeed that has something in common with you is huge. I mean, and you look at all the young girls right now who are playing hockey because of what, the resurgence and the emergence of women's hockey. You look at all the young girls right now who are playing soccer because of the success of the U.S. women's team in America, right? I think if you can see someone and if you can have real life role models and look up to people who look like you and who have something in common with you, that really will just grow and fester your love for the game. And I still have that. I mean, I follow Kevin Weeks religiously. I follow Anson Carter still as a broadcaster. David Amber, before he passed John Saunders, before he passed Stuart Scott, like a lot of those people, because I've always known that I've wanted to work in broadcasting, in media, in sports in some capacity. Didn't know until I got to college that I wanted to be a play-by-play announcer, but I always thought I was going to be the next Stuart Scott on ESPN, or I grew up listening to Ernie Harwell for the Tigers, play-by-play for baseball. But, being able to see African Americans and people of color succeed in playing, in covering hockey is been a huge influence and a huge positive, and has had a huge positive effect on me, because it lets me know that, what? Hockey is for everyone. And I know that that's the moniker that they use, but hockey truly is for everyone. Black, white, gay, straight, doesn't matter who you are. If you love the game, if you are interested, if you can play, this game is for you. And I love what the NHL has done in recent years in doing that. And a good friend of mine, Bill Douglas, who writes for The Color of Hockey, it's a blog that he started, was just signed on by the NHL. And his number one job working for NHL.com and working for the NHL is to write about and continue to help promote the diversity of this game. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him in that new role with the mothership in New York, to see all the different stories that aren't being told, or all the different stories that need to be told about people blazing their own trail in this game. And, and again, that also goes hand in hand with the more diverse I think your player base is, the more diverse your coverage is. I think that only will help to diversify your fan base, because now you're exposing your fans to something they may have never known about, to stories and to places and to traditions that they may have never seen. So for me, it's a win-win for everybody involved to see more diversity, to see, and that's not just a racial thing. I think, especially in today's political climate, I think everything is made so much about race, but I also feel like when you say diversity, I mean, that means race, that means religion, that means sex, that means gender, your sexual orientation, whatever. So being able to see a diverse product is a win-win for everybody.
I mean, you mentioned the women's leagues, and in hockey in particular, I know the NWHL and the CWHL, the National Women's Hockey League and the Canadian Women's Hockey League. They're both, the 6-team league in Canada and the 5-team league now in the NWHL, and a great poster, person for that, inclusivity is Harrison Brown. One of the primary, transgender athletes in the sport, if not in all of women's sport. And to be able to be such a spokesperson for, transgender athletes at that level. I mean, yeah, it is something that transcends race. It transcends, again, you said religion and sex, and, it's something that, for every occurrence that, somebody steps out like that and proclaims that, hey, I play the sport of hockey and I am, transgender, or I am homosexual, I feel that it's starting to, obviously there's a lot of history, and unfortunately just a lot of just garbage to put behind in regards to the past.
Yeah.
But, with people, growing up in an environment where hockey is for everyone is starting to be, is starting to be an annual thing for multiple clubs, and hopefully all 31 clubs will embrace this more and more as time goes on. Even in regards to mental health, I mean, you look at what, Robin Lehner, I mean, his career resurgence after being, after very public, acknowledgement that, he's got a substance abuse problem. And so he, in Buffalo, he takes time off, and then he's given an opportunity with the Islanders to backstop that team, and look how successful they are, and look how much of a career resurgence he's had. It's getting beyond the stigmas. That's the word that I was looking for earlier. It's getting beyond the stigmas that have plagued the the world of sports, not just hockey, but I think, obviously it's a little bit more pronounced that, a lot of black superstars in the NBA and the NFL are front and center, and that's it's just kind of the way it's been for a number of years in those respective sports. But for hockey, even looking at the Cincinnati Cyclones, obviously with you up in the booth, I mean, with Jason Payne on the bench as an assistant coach, and even with Nate Mitten and Devontae Stevens and Arvin Atwell as well. It's like
and we also, and to continue that, we've got a female GM and a female athletic trainer as well. So, I mean, we're the most diverse team, I think, top to bottom, in the ECHL. But no, you're right, and I think that's, as hockey grows more, and I look at the Panthers and I look at the Kings, and I think the Ducks as well. I know the Panthers and Kings for sure, but I also think the Ducks have entirely separate Spanish radio broadcasts for their games. So now you're reaching the second largest segment of the population in the U.S., which is Hispanics, a growing Hispanic population, and getting them involved in hockey. So, I think it all comes full circle. Hockey has been, hockey has been kind of like we said, the old boys club for a long time, and it's starting to change. I know that a lot of people that I talk to, that I deal with on a daily basis, have nothing but positive and great thing the game of hockey, and how much it has come and how far it's come in a relatively short amount of time, and where it continues to go. So, you mentioned the young boy, and there's been multiple kids who have experienced a lot of racial hatred and epithets over the last, it feels like over the last couple months, you're seeing this quite a bit. And it's awesome to see PK Subban, sending messages to these kids about not giving up. It's great to see Devontae Smith-Pelly and the Washington Capitals say, hey, like, don't let anybody, tell you can't do something. And you're always going to get the eye rolls. It happens. You're not going to be able to please everybody. I get that. But when you have your stars, your marquee teams, your marquee players, when you have those folks coming out and saying, hey, I stand up for, I believe in, and again, this goes back to let's play, hockey is for everyone. If you can play, you can play. If you can shoot, you can shoot. It doesn't matter who you are. You know what I mean? And I think it's great. And interesting fact, while we're on the subject of diversity, there's a book that I read. It's called Black Ice. And it actually talks about how the current game of hockey that we play today was actually started, and a lot of the rules were cultivated from a game that was invented in Nova Scotia, who fled the U.S. to Canada on the Underground Railroad. The modern form that has now been, molded and shaped into our current game of hockey. But it's a really interesting read about the early days of hockey in North America in the mid to late 1800s, about how it came about. So it was a really interesting read.
Huh. I had no idea. Yeah, that's really interesting. And to kind of tag on to that a little bit, the Montreal Canadiens just had their first game called and broadcasted in Cree. So the Cree Indians got to hear a Montreal Canadiens game. Yeah, it was just recent. I saw it on social media, but yeah, the Canadiens had the first NHL game broadcasted in Cree, and it was really neat to hear the response on social media, especially from one gentleman who said that his 92-year-old grandpa had been following hockey for years, but just was, in tears in regards to hearing the game that he loved be called in his native tongue. And, I know it was a big, it was a big touch point when the Pens won the cup a couple years ago on the, I believe there was a call in another, the Sikh Punjabi.
Oh,
there
Punjabi, the Punjabi.
Yeah.
And Hockey Night in Canada, they actually do a weekly. They now broadcast Hockey Night in Canada and the playoffs in Punjabi as well, because if I'm not mistaken, Punjabi is the second largest minority group in Canada now. Wow. So, actually, it may be the largest. It might be large. I'm not sure. It's one or two, but yeah, I do remember that.
Well, and I mean, just from you saying that, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. WWE and things like that, and Jinder Mahal and the Singh brothers, they're Canadian.
Oh, yeah.
They're obviously portrayed as just Indian on WWE television, but yeah, they're Canadians. They trained in Canada, and so it's like, yeah, that totally makes sense as to why. That just kind of adds to the Punjabi being a majority minority group. Is that a?
We're the majority.
There you go.
I can see that.
So,
but it's weird though. Like, I mean, and I absolutely love having conversations like this, man. It is something that we and again, I feel like I've used the royal we quite a bit here. We as a society tend to shy away sometimes from wanting to talk about things that may make us uncomfortable, but I feel like, being able to have conversations like this, it's all from a hockey perspective. It all goes back, I think, to growing this game and to growing our game and to making our game the best it can be. And I know so many people who have been playing hockey. They learn how to skate before they can walk, and they loved the game. They've embraced the game. They've played the game. They've watched the game. They've done everything that there is to be done within this game of hockey. And they are so frustrated because hockey, rightfully so, doesn't get the due that it deserves on ESPN, in the mainstream media. You need NBC Sport Network. You need NHL Network just to get decent hockey coverage. But basketball, football, baseball, golf, MMA, WWE, NASCAR, it's shoved down our throats on every network at every turn. So, I love having conversations like this because you find out so much about people that you never even knew liked hockey. You didn't even know this or that about a person. And to be able to keep it within the hockey world, hockey is so small, man. This world, I've heard the same story. John Cooper used to be a head coach in Green Bay with the Gamblers, and he won a Clark Cup there before he started his meteoric rise to the NHL. And I've heard the same story about John Cooper from the Fall Classic back in 2008 from like 7 different people and 7 different situations. This is a very small hockey world, and being able to connect all those dots, and it's the 6 degrees of separation, I feel like, to everybody. I don't even think it's 6 degrees. I think it's like 3 degrees in most locker rooms, because just, I listen to Matt Thomas talk and Jason Payne. They're both from Toronto, and they both have played hockey growing up. Jason Payne runs a hockey school. He and Kevin Weeks grew up together. He's known the Subban family, as he would say, since PK was knee-high to a grasshopper. Being able to know all these people and to know all these families and all these stories and just see how they all come together has been an unbelievable experience. And I think it's something that everyone should embrace about this game.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I wanted to bring up during the closing time segment, because, not only are athletes on the ice, whether it's in the NHL, AHL, or ECHL level, you don't see a whole lot of black, if not non-white players playing the game of hockey. But, definitely up in the broadcast booth as well. I mean, Kevin Weeks is one of my favorite guys, bar none. I mean, I love turning on the NHL Network and just hear him, announce stuff. One of my favorite phrases from, welcome to the National, it's just like, I mean, he just grabs it. He's a natural, and that's exactly the same with listening to you. I mean, when I was introduced to your work, more so when, of course, Idaho's Brian McCormick and you called the 2018 ECHL All-Star Classic game on the NHL Network. It's like just again, it's hockey is for everyone. If you can play, you can play. It goes equally as well to putting on that headset. If you can announce and you can broadcast and you can do play-by-play, then you can do it. And and to say that, regardless of color, if somebody can get on that mic and be able to call the action and to paint a picture for the viewer at home, I mean, it's regardless of where you're from and what color you are. If you can do it and you can do it well, then you can do it. And I mean, I venture to say, to borrow a phrase from Stuart Scott, that when you're on that mic, you are as cool as the other side of the pillow, my friend. So,
you know what, man? If 10 years ago, I would have been 20. Okay, maybe not 10 years ago, 12 years ago. When I graduated Ann Arbor Pioneer High School in Michigan at 17 years old, I never in a million years thought that I was going to be a hockey play-by-play announcer. Like I said, I knew I wanted to work in sports. I knew that I wanted to have this career, but I didn't have anything in particular that I wanted to do. And then I did it for the first time when I was in school, and I fell in love with it. It was amazing. And, I like to think that I've got a bit of a personality, and that personality comes through my broadcasts, and I just want to have fun. I tell folks all the time, it's a very cliche thing to say, but I have never, ever, as long as I've been doing this, I've never worked a day in my life. I've never worked. This is a hobby. This is fun for me. I enjoy getting up every day, going to work, going to the rink, putting on the headset, being around the team. I mean, having worked now for 4 seasons in Cincinnati, my bosses are great. They're nurturing. They're kind. They're hard when they need to be, but they are the best people I've ever worked for. And I could not ask for a better organization to let you be yourself. And I think, I've learned so much about being myself and about calling games just from working here in Cincinnati. So that has been a huge blessing for me as well, to be able to start off your pro career in a place like this. But yeah, man, I just love having fun. I go out there. I take it very, very seriously. Don't get me wrong. I like to have fun. I joke around, but I do take my job super seriously. But you can't not have fun when you do what we do, because there's 27 of us in the ECHL. There are 31 of us in the AHL, and there's 31 of us in the NHL. Very, very few of us do what we get to do. So to be able to say that you are one of, 94? My math is terrible. 91 pro hockey broadcasters, AA, AAA, and the NHL. I mean, it's an honor to say that, and you have to stand apart. You have to do something that adds a little bit of flair, and I like to have fun with it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this is episode 25 for me, and I confess I was a bit rattled on just when we were having the technical difficulties. I'm like, okay, how do I fill time? How do I fill time? And it's like, okay, thanks for being patient with us. And yep, we've got Everett Fitzhugh from the Cincinnati Cyclones, and it's like, it's a trial and error thing, and it's something that I've definitely got more comfortable being behind the microphone and hosting the show that my boss Matt Harding and his cohort Bobby Metcalf have.
Great guy, by the way. Great two guys, Matt and Bobby. I've met Matt multiple times. I know Matt very well. I never met Bobby, but I heard nothing but good things about him. But man, what those two and yourself and the whole Sin Bin crew, what you guys have been able to accomplish on shoestring budgets and maintaining full-time jobs outside of this, you guys are, whew, as Kevin Durant said, you the real MVP.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, man. Yeah, it's a labor of love, and it's something that we've addressed a number of times here on the Sin Bin. This doesn't pay the bills. This isn't our primary source of income. This isn't our source of income. We make enough money to keep the doors open, and it's definitely something that we're passionate about. And it's sometimes it's a grind, but like you said, if you love something, it's not like work at all. I mean, there are certain moments where it's like, wow, just to balance this and that and the other thing and get to the rink and put out feature stories. And, it's just because we love this sport and we believe in this sport and we believe what the Sin Bin can bring to the ECHL and to the SPHL and AHL levels as well. It's just, it's something we enjoy doing. And so, it's, I tell you, it's just, to get behind the microphone, whether you're calling a game, play-by-play, color commentary, or doing a podcast, like anything, it's going to take practice. And like anything, you just need to be yourself. Because, when the boss was on the show a few weeks ago, I'm busting out the Macho Man Randy Savage. It's just like, I knew he was a WWE, WWF fan. And so, when you said cream of the crop earlier, I'm thinking back to the Macho Man promo that he did back in the 80s, I'm the cream of the crop. Yeah. Oh yeah, you gotta dig it, Mean Gene. Oh yeah, and I'm busting out the, it's like Mark Bonetti over in Rapid City. He does the John Madden and John Gruden and all those impressions, and that's what set hits.
I always interview him. Whenever we play Rapid City, I always get an NFL update from John Madden and John Gruden, and it is hysterical how on point he is. He does a great Doc Emmerich as well.
I haven't heard that one yet.
And then there's another one he does that I closed my eyes and I was like, holy bleep. That is him. That is him. I'm talking and I forget who the heck it was. But yeah, man, Benner, he's wow. Yeah. You talk about personality.
And that's the great thing is that, talking with guys like you and again, like Mark Bonetti with his personalities and just, personalities with his impressions rather, he just, it's just great to meet the folks and to get their different stories. And that's kind of what I wanted to do when I took over the reins of the In the Corners podcast and tooled it the way I did to talk about our home teams and the ECHL, but also to get to know whoever my guest is on at a personal level and to really, kind of, okay, what got you into the sport? What makes you tick and the things like that. And it's been rewarding and it's been really, really cool to see. And like I said, this has been a long time coming. This is something I've been looking forward to ever since I took over the podcast, is to get you on the show and to pick your brain and to have some fun. So I'm glad now that we're reaching the end of our show, I'm glad that you came on and yeah, I just want to say thank you, and you knocked it out of the park, and booyah!
Booyah! Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun. And again, I love the work that you guys do over there. And, I talked to a couple of other broadcasters that you've had on throughout the season. And I said, so how is it? Like, let me just tell me about, what should I expect? And you're like, no, CC was great. Like, it's an awesome time. And they were all correct. This was an unbelievable experience. And I loved chatting with you. And I hope the fans enjoyed it. I loved answering the couple questions that we got in. And it was awesome, man. It was really awesome. And a little selfishly, I'm hoping that Cincy and Idaho meet up so we can hang out in Boise. But you know what? It's gonna be a very fun, very demanding, very long playoff season. So who knows what'll happen? But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast. This was an absolute blast. And I always say, if you ever need anything, man, feel free to text me, call me, slide my DMs, do what you got to do, man. I love to talk
Everett,
to you.
It's been a pleasure, man. Once again, that was Everett Fitzhugh, play-by-play broadcaster of the Cincinnati Cyclones, and this has been CC Hawkley for the In the Corners podcast. And tune in next week, April 1st. We'll get a guest lined up. Haven't quite done that yet, but ECHL season ends in 2 weeks. This has been CC. You keep your stick on the ice.
Thanks for listening to the In the Corners podcast. For the latest news on the ECHL and more, visit thesinbin.net.
All sports fans have experienced this, right? Something amazing happens on the ice and you think, man, I wish I'd have been filming. Now with the Sporfy app, you can replace that thought with a click. With just one click of a button, Sporfy captures the past 15 seconds of action so you can instantly replay and share your favorite moments all without having to film. And it's easy too. All you have to do is download the app on iOS or Android devices and experience an all-new way of filming sports highlights.